also just use the Health Canada site for
just sort of show what we're going to do on the.
So going back to the agenda. So the way that we had this meeting planned out was that we'd walk through several of these other basic configuration ideas for some time, and then people were okay with their installations, try to walk through what you do next. So we're going to change it up just a little bit, and I'm going to focus on the basic configuration area to everyone having their own thing installed. If you would like to have things installed, we're still available. You know, one of us will still help you walk through it. Basic configuration. So I want to talk inside of the GINAS part about the way that we can communicate with multiple servers. It's right on the diagram previously. Let me actually put that diagram up there. So as you saw, three servers. And then there's the render. So some we can walk through this in a later date, but the thing to be able to happen is the front end can talk to any REST API. It could be one that's locally installed. It could be one that's in another place. So if I am here locally, that's at NIH NCATS, and you want to have your front end that's served locally, you can have your front end point to our back end and be able to view that data. And on the fly, if you wanted to change it, then to go back to your own local one, you could do that. So this is that it would be fairly easy to change which database you're serving and which version of the database you're serving up. So deployment. The deployments, except for the live foods, will all actually to our own version of the REST API. You your own one and have a point to that one, but by default, they're all pointing back to ours. So if you're in your front end, you're in as an administrative account, and that sent out with the admin administrative account information. So accounts are admin, user admin. All lowercase.
Yeah. The installation document that I sent out in advance of the meeting last week, it was mostly targeted towards the Amazon web deployment. The instructions are very relevant to Health Canada and any sort of software.
The default one on side of the other one is not. Now, somewhat dangerous in that right now that's the admin credentials for the admin site as well. So your own local one it would work, but these are default things. You can change what the admin things is inside of the user setting. As soon as you log in admin, you'll be able to see this new panel called admin. If you click here, you'll see some configuration settings. These are the main ones that are important. There's the server backend REST URL, which
Wait, slow down, do it again.
I'm sorry.
So go to the main Health Canada page. Log in as admin. Log out as user, log in as admin.
I don't think but you can if you want to.
Let's see what he's looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could we log in as admin?
You probably can.
Yes, you can. Okay.
Because it is actually, what it's doing underneath the covers is it's just sending out messages. So the message header had in what you're doing, and it authenticates. That's a whole other topic we're going to get to later. But it's sending out messages. So if all of us are simultaneously sending the message to the server will just deal with the messages in the queue and just go through them one at a time. So theoretically, we should all be able to be logged in as admin. We're not actually causing any trouble until we actually press commit or change. Then that can cause problems. Yeah.
Okay. So if you click on the admin panel after you're logged in, the configuration things that are especially important when you're first installing this locally are these two URLs are set. So the server side backend REST URL and server side render URL. These slides, hopefully, here. This REST API, where this REST API is, or where this renderer is, it needs to find both of those. Right now, this one is pointing to its pointing back to ours. This is the URL. It's always going to be the default URL. But if you REST API,
it's really big. It's just a little big. Yeah, much better.
Too big?
Thank you. How did you get the screen?
After you log in as admin and do that.
Yes, and then you go to admin. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So say if you're not sure what this means, I would play with it. So if this means, then by all means play around with it. If you don't know what it means, don't play around with it. But so let me step from that part of the admin level configuration onto just the next part, which is after you configured your server to point to yourself, Noel's job inside of the Amazon cloud part is explaining how this works and how you do this. The next thing you can do inside is you can do some user management. User management section, it's really just there for our fundamental testing purposes. You'll be able to register new users and give them passwords and also give them just basic roles.
And then here's the idea is really we just need a sandbox in which we can plug with applications. We have to partition out users, but if they're deploying this, say at the FDA, we have to integrate with their sign-on and authentication authorization procedures. But for we just had to implement something so that we could actually show it off in a test instance, and that's what we have here.
Sure. The other tab that I'll mention is that there's a control vocabularies tab, which right now I'd say is an incomplete and just sort of testing instance of a control vocabulary field that a level user can start to change around to say things like whether or not the naming organizations are represented, what properties are represented, what the types of polymer classes are, and so on. Free to look at that. I would say that this is a very incomplete snapshot that we've just sort of put up for testing purposes, but we'll look through those control vocabulary fields.
The control vocabulary that you are seeing is derived from the migration exercise that we've done with the FDA data. So FDA has articulated some of the controlled vocabulary in some domains that there isn't ISO nomenclature for or something like that. But that's what you'll see here. So, for instance, the properties that we have here, that's actually because those properties are used in other within the SRS. Not to say that this is the final controlled vocabularies for all the different domains.
That's right.
So we'll get into discussion about the different ones as we go through the different substance classes. But that in level functionality, changing the controlled vocabulary. So users
even changing the language type will be possible.
These as we expand, so most of these are available through the API, but not through the front end at this moment. There's expanded vocabularies down below. There's the main control vocabularies. There's a few other things that are really just language translation and localization that you can also change. As of right now, we haven't implemented all the translations, so we haven't put it in there. But in the future, we're probably going to actually ask for help in the room.
I'll explain this too. So when he's saying translations, he literally means in the user interface, those that are on buttons and menu items, right? Those would all be localized to a particular area. And so there'll be a literal lookup of, instead of showing this label, we'll show this label. So we have the software on the back end can handle doing it. We just haven't populated translations for other languages right now. Yeah. But you use this controlled vocabulary interface as well.
So just a basic overview of the kinds of things that you can do as an admin. There are some deeper level things you can do at the actual web application configuration that you can modify and change if you wanted to get deep down. But that's